The man of knowledge must be able not only to love his enemies, but also to hate his friends. That is pure Nietzsche, straight from human, all too human. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're not just exploring a philosophical concept, we are literally plunging into the dark, jagged heart of intellectual rebellion. Because to find real truth, you've got to be willing to burn down the comfortable house of lies you were raised in.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I am so thrilled to guide you through today's explainer. We're embarking on a dark, graphic novel-style journey into personal, intellectual liberation, all built around a profound philosophical fable we call The Cartographer of Desolation. And look, this isn't just some story about a mapmaker. It's a deep dive into Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of the Freigeist, the free spirit. We're going to explore the absolute necessity of solitude, the grueling courage it takes to challenge established dogma, and the incredibly painful birth of the truly liberated mind. Let's set the stage.
Section 1. The crime of seeing clearly.
In any philosophical dialectic, there's always a catalyst. Think about our protagonist here. He's a cartographer, and he spent his entire life just perfectly reproducing the sacred official charts of his society. But then, one day, he actually looks up. He realizes the real positions of the stars simply do not align with the gilded myths of his people. So he's hit with the ultimate existential crisis. Does he choose the cozy shelter of absolute truths or the cold, harsh reality of the actual landscape? To choose reality is to basically commit a crime against the comfort of the collective. So he leaves. He slips out through the city's eastern gate on a gray morning in early spring, carrying just his theodolite, a folded sheet of blank vellum, and literally nothing else. No farewells. Because honestly, there's no one he could explain this departure to without also explaining that crime of seeing clearly. The gate just closes behind him, sounding exactly like a chapter ending.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict of our fable. Just look at the contrast here. On one side, we have the map of what was wished. This is the dogma. It's filled with lush valleys, mythological topography, and, the cozy shelter of societal approval. But contrast that with the stark reality on the other side, the map of what is real. Out in the desert beyond the walls, the cartographer starts mapping the actual landscape. We're talking desiccated riverbeds, barren limestone shelves, ravines where the official charts promised absolute paradise. This is the defining choice of the Nietzschean free spirit. Do you draw what society wishes, or do you draw the cold story of objective reality?
Which brings us to Section 2. Society as a corrupted manuscript.
As our cartographer ventures deeper into this harsh, unforgiving desert, we really need to understand the intellectual mechanics of this departure. He has become the wanderer, or in Nietzsche's terms, the Freigeist. This is the liberated mind that intentionally abandons comforting illusions and the sacred cartography of society to pursue objective and psychological truth. You have to understand that this isn't merely physical travel. It's a profound, deliberate, intellectual detachment. The wanderer flat out refuses to let society dictate the coordinates of his reality.
So how exactly does the wanderer process the world? Well, by using a philological lens. Remember, in his early career, Nietzsche was actually a philologist, a scholar of ancient texts who strips away centuries of scribal errors to uncover a text's original form. The wanderer does exactly that, but treats human culture, morality, and religion as the corrupted manuscripts. To read the real truth, you have to literally erase the errors of society, and this requires absolute isolation. You must remove emotional bias, stepping away from the company of men so you aren't swayed by their desires. It demands scientific accuracy over human longing. Use your tools of indifferent measurement, like the cartographer's theodolite, to record reality, completely and utterly ignoring what humanity wishes were true.
Moving on to Section 3. The painful metamorphosis.
Stepping out of the methodology for a second, we have to recognize the grueling emotional cost of this intellectual rebirth. Becoming a free spirit is not some joyous walk into the sunset. It's a painful birth. Imagine the weight of the desert on our cartographer's shoulders as he realizes the sheer magnitude of what he sacrificed for the truth. The work is arduous, and it's lonelier than any solitude he's ever known. He lacks the company of men, sure, but worse, he lacks the company of consoling fictions. He belongs to neither the city behind him nor any destination ahead. But he knows this: he who draws the map of what is real must first erase the map of what was wished. That is the agonizing price of intellectual liberation, the death of comfort.
Let me ask you a direct, honestly, kind of terrifying question. Are you still clutching the sacred drawings of your society? Think about the myths you were handed by your parents, your culture, your institutions. Are they actually true, or are they just lush mythological valleys painted over the barren limestone of reality? Because challenging established dogma requires a kind of courage that, frankly, most people simply refuse to muster.
So what are the actual hallmarks of this newly liberated mind? First up, there's a profound lack of destination. The wanderer belongs nowhere. They accept that their journey has no final, divine purpose or ultimate endpoint. The joy is found entirely in the act of uncovering reality itself. Second, there's an acceptance of perspective. The free spirit learns to embrace the shifting winds of perspective, viewing history and human morality not as absolute, divine laws, but just as mere evolutionary accidents. They are finally free from the guilt of the city.
And that leads us to Section 4, the unmapped horizon.
Let's see how this all builds into ultimate empowerment, because the pain of the desert is not the end of the fable. The deconstruction of society's corrupted manuscript makes way for something incredibly vital and deeply inspiring. Destroying the old map is just the prerequisite for drawing a new one. Let's trace this intellectual evolution on our timeline here. We start in the city, which represents illusion and comfortable dogma. The catalyst force is a departure into the desert, representing deconstruction, isolation, and the agonizing philological stripping away of false beliefs. But then we reach the climax, the dawn of the noon. At this stage, the individual is no longer some weeping exile mourning a lost paradise. They become a pioneer. They stand in the blazing light of midday, where the shadows of old superstitions shrink to absolute nothingness.
He has shattered the gilded idols. He surveyed the desiccated riverbeds and found them beautiful in their brutal honesty. He stands before an unmapped horizon, holding a blank sheet of vellum. For the first time, he has full ownership of his own mind. And that right there is the ultimate goal of the Nietzschean journey: personal, unadulterated, intellectual liberation.
Now, the true power of this fable is that it leaves the final step entirely up to you. What values will you create on your own blank sheet of vellum? Once you've had the courage to embrace solitude, once you've hated your friends enough to reject their consoling fictions, and loved your enemies enough to understand objective reality, you are free. You are the cartographer. The map of what was wished is gone. The horizon is unmapped. So what will you draw?